Well, welcome everyone. We are recording today. The presentation will be up on our website. Catherine's really great about getting that up. So we will have the PowerPoint up and available and the recording of the session. Those of you that are just coming on now, Catherine is monitoring the chat, and I'm sure you're going to have questions and comments during the presentation. So feel free to put that information in the chat. And Catherine will be monitoring that. And if she needs to stop us, so because somebody has a question for Rebecca, we will definitely do that as well. Those of you that are joining, we are in webinar mode, which means we cannot see or hear you. So don't worry, you're not going to come on the screen accidentally. It's impossible. You're in webinar mode. The only way that could happen is if you request for us by raising your hand for us to unmute you, and we may have time for that, but it is a pretty full webinar, so that probably will not occur. So I just wanted to let you know that you will not be seen or heard. So that's always a concern for people. Today, I'm really excited to welcome our guest, and we're very excited to come back with our Living with Low Vision series. And today we're going to be meeting Rebecca Doran. On the screen as a picture of Rebecca, great picture with a big smile with a flag in the back, and she'll tell more about her story. But we're going to be talking to Rebecca today about a lot of things, but one of the main topics will be how she uses the MagniLink S, better known as the MLS. She uses it effectively for work every single day at work, but also through her education. She'll talk about that a little bit and how she's using it at home. So we also do have pictured the MLS on the screen. There's not a cord on this one. It's just a picture of it, but you can see the actual MLS, what it looks like, and you can see the controls on the actual unit. We'll have different pictures of the MLS. We'll also be showing the docking station and a few things throughout as well. I want to go ahead and do a little bit of an introduction to LVI America. And also, we are offering ACV REP credits. So I want to talk about that a little bit. That'll be on the agenda today. Of course, we're going to spend time talking with Rebecca about her amazing life journey, her success due to thinking out of the box, and also the ability to initiate proper self-advocacy, which is so important. We'll spend some time talking about that. How she's using the MLS for work, school, and home. Of course, plenty of time for questions and answers, future webinars, and of course, contact information. A little bit about LVI America, because there are a few names on here that I don't recognize. So thank you for being first-time attendees. In fact, if you would go into the chat, if it's your first time ever attending one of our webinars, if you would put a 1, we would greatly appreciate it. That way we kind of can gauge. And if you want to put how you heard about us, that would be helpful as well. But a little bit about LVI America. So Catherine and I represent LVI America. LVI, our mother company, is located in Sweden. So that's where all of our products are engineered. That's where they're developed. That's where they're shipped. That's where our entire engineering team, that's the bulk of our company, is in Sweden, in Vaxo, Sweden. And they have been making low vision products for over 43 years. They're the #1 company in Europe. And what happened during that process is they would come here to ATIA, CSUN, a lot of the major shows. And during that process, people would see the products and go, wow, these products look different. You know, I've seen a lot of products over the years, but these are different. And the 3 main things that really, I would say, set our products apart are, #1, our cameras. I've never seen a camera like ours on the market. They're incredible, whether you're doing document, distance, or self-viewing. And then the other thing is our products are extremely lightweight. We really source the materials that are heavy duty, that can, you know, I'm not saying drop your product on the floor, but we do source them to where if that happens, chances are they're going to be okay. So lightweight is really important. And then the last thing is very easy to use. We want people to be able to be successful with the products in a matter of 5 minutes or less. Now, there's obviously some features that that might take you a little bit longer than that, but just to be able to sit down and it just makes sense. You're able to grab it, touch it, and be able to use it very easily. So those are the three things that set the products apart. What happened was we became popular in America without even being here. But at that time, products were shipping in from Sweden. So it wasn't a fast process. And if any service needed to be done, it was actually sent back to Sweden, another not fast process. So approximately 5 years ago, they decided to have a presence in America, and they actually had someone come over from Sweden. Some of you have met him. His name is Christopher Caswell, and he was supposed to be here for a few months, and he lived here 1.5 years because it's a lot different in America than it is over in Sweden. So anyways, he helped get LVI America off the ground. I was lucky enough to come on board almost 3 years ago. And now Catherine and I, and of course with assistance from Christopher and all the team in Sweden, but we are LVI America. So we have our own warehouse here in America, products shipped from Illinois, and we have our own service center in Massachusetts because all of our products have 2-year bumper to bumper warranty. The Tab product is the one that's a little bit different because it's a Microsoft Surface Pro tablet and they only give us 1 year. And we have 1 year on our batteries, but things that we create and manufacture, we offer 2 years. So that's a little bit about us. If you have other questions about our company or anything like that, again, put it in the chat. Catherine's monitoring that. There is a picture on this page where the agenda, and it's Rebecca, and she's actually at her office. And she'll talk about what she does for a living because it's really fascinating, but we couldn't shoot live there today, and she'll explain more why. But this picture is of her, how she uses the MLS at work, and she's actually using it a little differently than a lot of people use the product. So I'm really excited for her to share that story. And you'll see that you just see a monitor, and she has some paper on the desk. And again, this is actually her using it live at work.
Kimberly, may I just interrupt for a moment? I wanted to let you know there are 4 people that are brand new to our webinar series today.
Wonderful. Great news. Thank you. So we are proud to announce that we are now ACB REP registered provider for professional learning and education, known, I call it Ripple, but it's just RPPLE, and that's the insignia or the actual picture for that. And today, if you're joining and you're wanting to apply for ACB REP credits, please email Catherine after the event today. And please pay attention because there's a few things you're going to need to know. You're going to need to know an entrance code, and we're going to announce that. Catherine will put it in the chat in just a minute. You're going to actually need a code at the end as well. And then you're going to need to have some learning objectives from today. You need to be able to see 5 things that Rebecca wasn't able to do if she did not have this technology, and how she's able to do it with this technology and how it's basically changed options for her. She's going to talk about way more than 5, but if you can get 5 from this for learning objectives, that's going to be extremely helpful. So we're going to go ahead and give the entrance code for ACB REP, and the entrance code is August. Yes, August, the month we are in. AUGUST, August. And Catherine will put that in the chat as well, so you have that information. Okay, we're going to start out with meeting Rebecca. This is a picture of her and her husband. And her husband isn't just part of her story because, of course, our husbands are part of our story, but he has a very unique role to play in this story. And we do have a picture of them pictured here on a couch. And we're going to talk about, first of all, her amazing life journey. I'll kind of pose some questions with her, and then she'll be able to answer those. She also has been very successful due to out-of-the-box thinking. So I'll have her talk a little bit about that. Her need for self-advocacy will be kind of through this conversation that we're having, and dreams that do come true. You know, she has her education, some things she's wanting to do within her journey and how that has happened. She'll also share a little bit about her advocacy for others because she has some stories about her son that she can share. And then we'll kind of break down into using the MLS for work, school, and home on separate slides. And then, of course, we'll wrap it up at the end with what's next for Rebecca. What are some of the other dreams and what are some of the things we're going to do? So first of all, I want to welcome Rebecca. Rebecca Doran, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Through this journey, as Catherine mentioned, when we do this Living with Low Vision series, we're fortunate enough to get to spend time. So I've got to talk to Rebecca on numerous occasions. She's sent me pictures of her and her family, and I've really got to know her a little bit. It's been a great pleasure. So as we've been talking, Rebecca, you know, you do have an amazing life journey. So could you kind of start back with when you discovered you had a visual impairment, what that is, and then what was the process from there?
I've had a vision issues, decreased vision, I guess, since I was 14 months old. When I was 14 months old and starting to walk as a baby, a toddler, my mom and dad noticed that I would walk into things and you know, fall down a lot. So they took me and had my vision checked. And sure enough, you know, they put me in glasses at 14 months old. As I grew up, you know, I continued to wear glasses and have, you know, it was basically just decreased vision, but the vision issue is a genetic vision problem. So it's a cone rod dystrophy. So the cones affect my color perception and the rods affect the brightness, the light and dark brightness. So I am very light sensitive. I didn't notice a lot of the issues with the color and the cones and rods, colors and brightness until probably my mid-20s. And the work where I worked at that time, my supervisor gave me a report and said, you know, work on these things that are highlighted. And I was looking at the paper thinking, I don't see anything highlighted. So then we decided we would start changing the way, you know, change colors, or we would underline or star certain things for me to do. And that was before I met my husband. So, you know, I started seeing a few significant vision changes in my mid-20s. And again, like I say, this is a hereditary thing, so it's not something that can be corrected 100%. But so as I've gotten older, I have noticed more, and probably in the last 10 or 12 years, I've started having more issues. The first significant change that I made at work was to invert the colors on my computers. I would have trouble with brightness. So, you know, for most people, having black text on a white background works. For me, that was just too bright. So I was wearing sunglasses at my desk, and that helped some. But then I went to inverting the colors on the Windows computer, and then did the high contrast. So I had a black background with the white text, and that made a huge difference. So there are, of course, some computer software programs and apps that don't work well with that, but we may do. And so that was probably in my early to mid 30s. And so since then, my vision has continued to decrease. I do have decreased visual acuity. I couldn't tell you the difference between blue and greens. I can't tell the difference between oranges and pinks and reds, certain shades of colors. I can see color, but I can't distinguish certain colors. So, and again, you know, back to the highlight thing, you know, when I was in school, my last semester, I was working on a bachelor's degree in business and a minor in legal studies. So in my last semester of school, I had to do an internship for the legal studies program. So I went to work at an attorney's office, and they relied heavily on yellow highlight because the yellow highlight wouldn't copy onto documents. So when they're making copies to send to another attorney or to present in court, you can't have multicolor highlight on the pages because it doesn't copy well, and it can cause issues if other copies have to be made. So but there's a lot of documents. There was a lot of reading, a lot of paperwork, medical records. And so when I started that was when I reached out to my voc rehab counselor, and we talked a little bit about the magnitude of paperwork that I was going to have to be working with. And that was when I met Cheryl Saucier, and she introduced me to my MLS, the MagniLink. And without the MagniLink, I would not have been able to do the internship successfully. And it's now a part of my everyday work. So I work for a county circuit court clerk's office, and we process a lot of misdemeanor charges for people. We process traffic, we do civil claims, things like that. So anything in the justice field, in the legal field, still requires massive amounts of paperwork. So but again, still had issues with the highlight, the yellow highlight. And that's a primary thing in the legal field, because again, it doesn't transfer onto copies. So as you all alluded to earlier, my husband played a big role in that. He is a fisherman. He fishes, he loves to night fish, loves to day fish, loves to fish anytime he can. So I was explaining to him about the issues with the highlight, that I really needed to be able to see the highlight. And he said, hang on just a second. And he went out to the shed and he got into his tackle box. And he comes back in with a black pen light. And I'm kind of standing there thinking, what's this nut doing? I married this nut, but what's this nut doing? And so we had a yellow highlighter, and he made a few marks on the paper, turned the black pen light on. I could see what was highlighted. It was incredible. So yeah, he got brownie points for that. But
wow, yeah, probably made his favorite dinner or something that night.
Yeah, he got dinner, and so he but it was amazing that, you know, just being able to see that and thinking outside the box. And you know, when I've learned that I'm having more issues with my vision, you know, I continue to find solutions, or try to work to find solutions. And sometimes that means, you know, trying something non-traditional, trying something that may work, it may not work. In this case, the little black light pen light worked, and it's small enough I can use it at work on my desk. I still use it on my desk. There's, you know, some days that things come in that I have to be able to just scan real quick, and I just click it on, and there it is, and I see it, and I make my little marks to the side, or I make my notes on a separate sheet of paper, which ones I need to work on, which cases, and what I need to do on those cases. But through the years, I've just learned that assistive technology is not always, you know, just a computer or an electronic device. It can be a number of things.
Absolutely. You know, you and I have spoken, like I mentioned, several times, and, you know, I think that you have a very healthy outlook on self-advocacy. You know, I think the times that we are in right now, a lot of people are needing to say, hey, you know, hello, I need this done this way, or that's not going to work for me, in a very respectful way. But self-advocacy can be a challenge. Sometimes we don't think we have the right, or we shouldn't ask for that accommodation, or if we ask, we're going to be looked at differently, or if we go somewhere and somebody just hands us a form and it's small and we can't see it, it might not be comfortable to say, you know, do you have this in larger print, or can I see this, or I can't see this, can someone assist me filling this out? And you've had to deal with that a lot. You know, you shared with me a story that just happened recently. So share a little bit about self-advocacy and why that's so important.
Yeah, self-advocacy is huge, and it definitely will stretch the boundaries of your comfort zone, but it is something that you have to learn to do, or else you're not going to be able to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So a couple of recent stories, I went to a doctor's office to pick up a nebulizer. I also have asthma. So I went and picked up a nebulizer, and they gave me some paperwork to look at that I needed to sign. And the print was really, really small. And I was standing there looking at that, and I asked the lady, the receptionist, I said, "Can you tell me what this is?" And she said, "Well, I guess it's the paperwork that you need to sign so we can bill your insurance." And I'm like, "Well, it's really small. I can't read it. And I have a vision impairment. So I need help with this." And she said, "Well, she took the form and she kind of told me what it said at the top and kind of summarized it, that, I was giving them permission to bill my insurance." And, it's not always comfortable to say, "Hey, I can't see that." And, people do look at you funny. Sometimes they do not understand that concept. Another recent story, I was at a restaurant. It was a fast food restaurant, just popped in real quick on my lunch hour, and couldn't read the menu board behind the cashier because they had so many items, and the print was really small. And she said, "What do you want to order?" And I told her, I said, "I'm sorry, I can't read your menu. Can you tell me what salads you have?" I was wanting a salad that day. And so she read them to me, and she was really nice about it. And most people generally are. It's just they don't know unless you tell them. And it is a little uncomfortable because it's almost like revealing a weakness. But at the same time, I've learned through my experience that my weakness may be my vision impairment, but I have so many other strengths. And some of my coworkers, it's funny because at work, I may not be able to see the paper document without my CCTV, or I may not be able to see the highlight, or I may not be able to see who's across the room coming into the room. But I can certainly hear every time somebody's cell phone vibrates, and they don't hear it. And they're like, "Oh, she's got eagle ears." So, where you have a weakness, or, you have strengths in other areas. So using those strengths in other areas can sometimes help compensate for that weakness. And my dad has this vision problem as well. So I grew up with him as an example. And I can't say enough that my dad he did construction. He did home remodeling and construction and things like that. He was never able to get his contractor's license because of the color issues. He couldn't distinguish colors. And so to get a contractor's license, you have to be able to see colors. But he did work with a contractor, and my dad built a lot of houses. My dad, really good houses. Really nice houses, and he did electrical and plumbing. He would have to have somebody help him with the colors, but he didn't let that stop him. My dad was legally blind at age 27, and so I guess I learned from him that you don't let things stop you from doing the things you want to do. And so back to my school and talking about dreams coming true, I started college when I just graduated high school. And I completed a couple of years of college, kind of in and out. I just wasn't set, didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. So I got married and had my children. And so school kind of got put on the back burner. And, when my kids got old enough and I decided it was time for me to go back to school, I was nervous about going back to school because my previous experience had been in a classroom with paper books, printed books. And so I knew that was going to be an issue. So I talked to the Disability Services office at my school campus and had to provide some paperwork, some documentation from my doctor. But I was able to get all of my textbooks and materials in an electronic format that I could alter the format on my computer and make it in a high contrast. So I was able to switch it from the white background with black text to black background with white text. And my instructors knew that anything that had certain colors or that was color coordinated, that I needed them to put a little note at the top of the page, you know, and maybe note the color blue or green, or if there were certain things highlighted, they could real quickly go through the document and, you know, make it bold and italicized and underlined. So, you know, working through and letting people know there are supports out there. You know, hopefully, I know I was fortunate to have my family. I was fortunate enough to have the Disability Services Office. I was fortunate enough to be able to work with vocational rehabilitation. And, you know, sometimes it takes a tribe, it takes a village to accomplish those goals.
Absolutely. You know, it's
you
can't do it we're not an island.
No, and everybody has certain things that they struggle with. The most, I think probably harder than my vision impairment are those who struggle with psychological or psychiatric issues, because those are certainly invisible disabilities.
Absolutely.
So, you know, at least mine is somewhat visual because I'm usually wearing my tinted glasses or my sunglasses. And so people kind of wonder, they kind of see that and they wonder, but they don't understand. And, you know, if we're not willing to talk about it, then they're not going to understand for sure.
Absolutely. Let's get into how you're using the MLS for work right now. You kind of talked to me about a couple things. So I have a few bullet points here and I'll let you fill those in, but you told me you use it a lot for reading documents. You said, you know, it's easy to read for long and complex documents when you have the size that you want, when you have the color contrast that works for you. And again, you're not connecting this to your computer. You're going to talk more about that. You're just using it with a monitor, which just shows the power of the MagniLink S, because it is the only product that we have that you can just plug into a monitor. And you're using that specifically to do everything. And you have a very taxing job. You do a lot of things. You also said that you use it for analyzing case information for proper processing. Obviously, it's important to put the right serial number with the right crime or what's going on, all the things you're looking at. So it's really important to be able to not only look at that information, but process it. It's very detailed and putting it in the proper area. And then you said also for effective data entry, allowing you some documents you need them bigger, some you need them smaller, but you have that ability, and you also can change the high contrast. And then also preparing documents for judges' signatures. I mean, obviously they trust you, you work there, you're not gonna, you know, put something in there that's not accurate. So it has to be accurate. And as you said, strangely enough, you know, even this world and time we're in, you still deal with paper every single day at your job. So I'll let you kind of take that and go with that for a few minutes, and then we'll move into using it in other areas.
Okay. So yeah, I am a deputy clerk for the local circuit court clerk's office. And I started in February. After I graduated, I moved into this job. And one of the first things that I did was arraignments. And if you're not familiar with the legal system, an arraignment is when someone is just arrested and charged with certain crimes or certain offenses. So we take the documents in that the officers or the plaintiffs will come in, they'll file a complaint, and they do that affidavit statement of a statement of facts, so to speak. So we have to read the events that occurred that bring these charges against the defendant. So sometimes it's nothing more than someone getting pulled over and driving on a suspended license or a revoked driver's license. Sometimes it's nothing more than someone driving without insurance. But then there are other times when it's, you know, there's been someone who's evaded officers, and it's been a lengthy process, sometimes over the course of several hours. And so the officer has to recount the events. And sometimes there's drug charges, sometimes it's assault or domestic violence, but we have to read that affidavit, that statement of events, to verify if there's reasonable cause to press charges against an individual. You can't just press charges without sufficient evidence. And so when I started this job, I was having to read the affidavits, and some of them were several pages long. And so to begin with, I was still learning a little bit about the job, but I realized real quickly that I was going to need to bring my CCTV in, my MagniLink, to use at work. The print was small, it was on paper, it was, the white paper, black print. And so I talked to my supervisor about getting an extra monitor, told her I had this CCTV and that I could bring that in, and I just needed a monitor. Well, when you work in government, sometimes things don't move so quickly. So it took a few weeks. So in the meantime, I went and I actually picked up a small, inexpensive 24-inch TV at Walmart. And I took it to work and I set it on my desk and I hooked my MagniLink into it. And I could tell they were a little unsure about it at first. They hadn't ever seen anything like that. So, I had to assure them that there was nothing connected, that would cause any personal information, PII, to be revealed or any, that it wasn't connected to the network or anything like that. So they were really comfortable with that. And that's another thing in this job, you can't release certain personal information, just like at your doctor's office. We deal with names and dates of birth and social security numbers and a lot of personally identifiable information. So when they realized that it was secure and that it was going to help me do the job, and I was able to start processing the affidavits more quickly because I could see that, they were really on board with that. They really liked it. And of course, it didn't hurt that I also shared it with my coworkers, and they were able to look at their wedding rings under the MagniLink, and they can make them bigger and look at their, their rings and fingernails and things like that. So it's
that's a way to make your diamond look bigger, huh?
Yes. Yes. So, we had a little fun with it, and they enjoyed it. And, they really thought it was interesting to see them in reverse colors and inverted colors. So, but they were really on board with that, and they were really pleased to see how it helped me do the job. I was able to read the affidavits so much easier, and I was able to get the information entered. And again, you don't want, in this job, you can't put in the wrong charge on, for someone. So if they're charged with domestic assault or burglary or shoplifting, we primarily in our court deal with misdemeanors. And then there are some civil cases, which are like debt collection cases. It's small claims court. So, if you put in $2,500 instead of $25,000, that's a huge difference. If you put in a charge against someone and it's not the right charge and it gets dismissed, then, the justice system doesn't work right. So, there is the human error factor in it, and they realize that, but, it's very important to make sure that the correct charges go in, the correct information goes in about the individual, the defendant, so that they can, process the case correctly. Yeah, it's really important. And so it helped improve my accuracy as well. There were little things that I would make mistakes on. Sometimes it was the spelling of a name, or sometimes it was, their address or date of birth, social security number, maybe not getting entered correctly. But my accuracy improved, my speed improved, and my supervisor was very pleased. So.
Well, that's awesome. And, you know, you and I were talking earlier, and I said when we had our own company, I used to have a training facility, and everyone that I hired had a visual impairment. And I did that because, for one, I knew the students, I had trained them, and I knew who was qualified in what area. To me, it had nothing to do with whether they had a visual impairment or not, because to me, I just don't see that. I look at a person, and to me, a person is a person, and we all have strengths. So the people that, you know, excelled at people, I put them out front. They were more of a receptionist. You know, the person that was really good learning technical things, they either might be a trainer or they might create curriculum, or, you know, it didn't matter to me. But what did matter to me, and matters to every employer, is the attitude when someone comes to work, and that they show up. I mean, your comment today is, you know, you never have missed before. Today you weren't feeling well, but normally you've never missed. And that's what matters. What matters is that, you know, I noticed all the people that I was working with, they were so thankful to have that opportunity. Of course, it wasn't hard for them to convince me they needed assistive technology, because I had trained them on it. So that was a little different, but still, they were just so pleased to have that opportunity. And I think that that's so important, if we can get people to understand that and to see that. And you talked to me about your education a little bit, that, you know, when you went to school, you didn't have everything that you needed, because, you know, it takes time, but then you started a legal internship. And during that, you used the MagniLink S. You said you used it, the ability to compare medical records for insurance, proper processing of litigation cases, comparing records and duplicates. If there were duplicates, you would discard them when needed. Reviewing documents prior to attorneys going to hearings. I mean, you can't give them, or you don't want to give them, false information or wrong information, because it's going to affect the outcome. And, you know, it is a court system. It's based on honor and integrity. So talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to jump from that to also your future, because you and I have talked about that. You know, do you want to become an attorney? Where do you see yourself going? And now that you know the technology's out there, really the sky is the limit for you. So if you'd share a few things about your legal internship using the MLS, and then kind of your future, that would be great.
Okay. Yeah. So last year, in 2020, I was released from a position that I had just started because of COVID. So the department that I worked for, they had to make some budgetary decisions, and me being a new employee, I was still probationary period. So I was an easy cut for them. So at that point, I decided to do school full time and finish, and I was able to graduate in December. But again, my bachelor's degree is in business administration, and I have a minor in legal studies. My goal is to eventually work in an attorney's office as a practice manager. So that's kind of what I'm working for. I know that it doesn't happen overnight. I can't just get my degree and walk out the door and walk into an attorney's office and, you know, say, hey, you know, I want to come in and manage your practice. So I know I've got to get some experience, but last year, when I realized that I was going to have to do the internship, and I started that, I talked to the attorney in the neighboring town, and they were very willing to hire me. They also had a child with a disability, a vision impairment, so they were not very closed to that. They were open to letting me come in and do the internship. So we talked, and I realized that there was going to be a lot of paperwork. So that was when I reached out to my voc rehab counselor and shared with her what was going on with the internship, and that I was going to need some help with reading the documents and the paperwork. And so meeting with Cheryl, the LVI rep, she helped identify what device was going to work best for me, because I needed something portable. I needed something that I could take back and forth. I needed something that would set up quickly, something that was easy for me to carry. And so she recommended the MagniLink, and my voc rehab counselor was able to get that for me. So I started at the internship, and there were the practice that I worked in, they did insurance fraud investigation. It was workers' comp investigations primarily, but there were some liability claims issues. And so there would be one of the cases that I helped work on, there were over 5,000 pages of medical records. That is a lot of medical records. And so as a paralegal or legal assistant, I had to review the records. I had to take out records that were not relevant to the case. And then I also had to cull out duplicate records. So we went from having over 5,000 pages of medical records down to about 2,300 pages. And so, you have to be really careful that you're not culling out something that's important or something that's not a duplicate. So it was really important to be able to compare this medical record and that medical record. And sometimes you would get duplicate medical records from different providers because they had gotten records from other providers. So, but while I was there, I also had to be able to see the highlight. So that was where the black light, pen light came in. And so they were really pleased when 3 of the cases that I helped on, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you look at the backside of a legal case, there's a lot of work that goes in on the backside of it. And it's comparing documents, it's identifying information that's either going to support the case or that's going to cause the case to not be justifiable. So there's a lot of work that goes in on that. And but on 3 cases, I was able to help 2 of the attorneys in the practice be able to win their cases. So they were fraudulent claims, and we had to find the information in the medical records. And so that was really significant for the firm because these were multi-million-dollar lawsuits. So there was a lot of money on the line for these, for the insurance company and for the firm. So when the attorneys win those cases, they're able to save a lot of money for the client, as well as that helps justify their paycheck and my paycheck as well. But so there was a lot of records, a lot of paperwork that we would go through. There were records request letters that would have to be sent out. So yeah, there's a lot of backside work that goes in on that. But
that's incredible. I mean, when I think of tedious, long, tiring work looking at paperwork, the first thing that it doesn't pop in my head is I would hire someone with a visual impairment, because I'd be thinking, oh my gosh, how are they going to look at all of this? So to be able to do that, and not only do it, but do it effectively, help them win their cases. I mean, just the gratification, because I know that that's something that's very important to you, and to possibly, yourself be on the other side of that, having someone help you in the future, because, you might be an attorney in certain areas. And so, how important it is. No one can do a job by themselves. We're not an island. We require some assistance.
Right. And it was really interesting in that position too, because more often than not, I had a desk lamp that I would turn on, and I would just leave the overhead light off in my office. So I would come in and speak to the secretary at the front desk and talk to a couple of the other girls coming in. But my office was at the end of the hall. So when the light's off, they think you're not there. And they would walk down every now and then, and they're like, just making sure you're here, just making sure you're okay. And so I would work with the lights off, and but I think they were really pleased and surprised at how well I did at processing the paperwork. The paralegal that I partnered with, who was providing some training for me, she was really blown away at how well I did, given
I'm sure. Absolutely.
So yeah, but
awesome.
There I simply hooked the MagniLink to, I actually used a computer monitor there.
Mm-hmm.
So, just using it to make a bigger screen and a bigger picture. Magnifying, being able to zoom in on certain things, smaller print, being able to invert the colors was really huge for me. But being able to adjust it and, increase the intensity, the brightness, and, it just made all the difference in the world. So I was able to finish the internship. I graduated school with honors.
Wow,
So
congratulations.
I was really proud of that. And it was a struggle sometimes, because having to get the Disability Services Office to let my instructors know. I had one instructor that was a little resistant, but he finally came on board with the accommodations that I needed to complete the class. But for the most part, most people are really happy to help.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Kimberly, excuse me, one thing that comes to mind as I listen to you two talk is the importance of the person doing the assessment listening to their client. Because perhaps if someone came into my office and said, I need to read voluminous reports, and I need to read every day, and I'm going to spend hours and hours at my desk reading and comparing and searching for words and phrases, I might say, oh, you need a screen reader, And the fact that someone, in this case, Cheryl, listened to Rebecca and said, oh yeah, this MLS will do just what you need. And that's the key to this business, doing just what the client needs.
Great point. That is so true. Absolutely.
Cheryl was amazing.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Cheryl was amazing. I just can't say enough about how helpful she was. And yes, her and the assistive technology assessment coordinator, they were both so good. They listened, they understood, and they offered options. They both offered some options for different types of assistive technology, but this one seemed to be what was going to work best for me.
Well, and that goes back to self-advocacy. If you couldn't have, if they showed you something and they thought something was better and you didn't, you were able to share, no, this is what I need. And that's so important. And then you talk about using the MLS at home. You said that you've got some allergies, so you use it for food labels, checking the ingredients, reading recipes, obviously ingredient lists, measurements, but you even said medicine bottles, checking on dosage or verifying you're picking up the proper medication. That's not, you wouldn't want to pick up the dog's medication if it was in the same cupboard, that type of thing. You need to be careful with medication. And then you said preparing taxes and reconciling your bank statements. You mentioned more and more and more. I just kind of captured a few of the key points that I think everybody does and needs to be able to utilize something to help them see. Do you want to add anything to that?
I know when I bring my MagniLink home, I do use it in the kitchen a lot. I love to cook, so that's kind of the heart of my home is in the kitchen, because that's where we gather. My kids, my parents, we all enjoy cooking. My husband. So, sometimes reading those, I've developed over the last few years some allergies to nuts and certain foods. So surprisingly enough, you wouldn't realize that you have those ingredients in a lot of things that you don't think about. And rather than have an allergic reaction, I just try to read those labels. So yeah, it's really important. Especially the tree nuts. Those are probably my most severe allergen. So, you find nut and nut-based items in a lot of foods. But sometimes when I'm in the kitchen by myself, trying a new recipe, it's hard to read that printed recipe, or, and so I'll just, actually what I do is I take the MagniLink and set it on the counter, and I use my laptop with it. I have a MacBook, so I just basically hook it to my MacBook and use it to zoom in and zoom out on the recipe. So even for simple things like that at home. But the medicine bottles are another thing with trying to make sure that we get the proper dosage. My husband even uses it sometimes to look at his bottles to make sure, and reading the side effects, those little information pamphlets that come with your medicine when you try something new, to read the side effects or what you can and can't take with it, the dosage amounts. Those little packages are hard to read.
I agree. I, when I travel, sometimes I take it out because this sounds silly, but in the hotels, they give you shampoo and conditioner and the little print's so tiny. And if it's not a clear bottle and I can't see, I'm like, well, I don't want to put on the conditioner first. So I use it with their small print all the time.
For sure. Yeah. And then, taxes, we all have to do taxes and reconcile our bank statements. Sometimes I use it to look at my bills. Sometimes the bills are printed in small print, but we definitely don't want to mess with the IRS and mess up our taxes. So it's always a good thing to just make sure you got that 2 instead of that 7, that $20,000 income versus that $70,000 income or whatever your income is. It's like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Don't want to be hearing from the IRS on that.
Absolutely. Well, you guys, Rebecca mentioned some things about the MLS, but I wanted just to go over a couple highlights and then we'll close out with a few, if you guys have questions for her. And if there's extra time, we'll talk a little bit more about a few other things, but the MagniLink S, I have a picture up on the screen of the product. Again, I don't have the cords in this picture, but it's well known for superior image quality. The camera that she talked about does do distance. It also does document and self-viewing. It's a full HD camera, so you're getting 1080p quality. You can save images and do video recording. Of course, at her work, she doesn't have it connected to a computer because they don't want her saving images or doing video recording. So that would be that you would need to have it hooked to a computer. And I always tell everybody, obviously, if you're in a public setting, you need permission to snapshot pictures on a board or video of somebody doing a presentation. Always get permission. We do offer split screen mode. So if you're trying to do multiple things at once, you have the ability to have, let's say you are looking at a board, maybe you're in a math class, you're typing the numbers, but then you need to have Excel open and you don't want to alt tab back and forth, which would allow you to do that, but you just want to have it all on the screen. You could have the screen split. This by far is our most compact and lightweight camera that we offer. It's 4.2 pounds. If you do get it with text to speech, it's extremely fast and accurate. We use Nuance for our text to speech and our voices. We're an international company, so we do support 30 different languages. We ship with English and Spanish, but you can request others if you'd like. I have now a picture of a girl, a student actually using it at school up on the screen in the upper right-hand corner, but it's very easy to set up. One cable is needed. We of course provide you that cable. You can customize it for each individual. Super easy to navigate with menus or hotkeys. You can also customize the menu options and the size of the user interface. Compatible, she just mentioned using it with a Mac. We work with PC, Mac, Chromebook, and just a monitor. So that's really cool. She's using it with a Mac or a monitor. We provide a very unique carrying case that you can use to just put the camera right in it. It's a very small 4.2 pounds, as I mentioned, but then you can Velcro that case into a larger case if you're trying to carry your computer or any documents with you. This is also the product that we have that has the most accessories. You can get a clamp where you can clamp it onto a desk, and then you would actually take the unit where the feet are, you would fold those up, and then you put it in, you can see it in the middle one a little better. It's like a stationary docking station. You can just slide it right in there. And when you do that, you then have the ability to move left and right. So that actual clamp area rotates. So you can get it for a clamp for a desk. You also can get it for just a plate, which you see in the middle, or you can get it with an XY table. It's an oversized XY table with friction breaks. Really great for looking at books, magazines, or anything. You can look at single page documents as well, but it really shines when you're looking at something that's open, that's large, like a newspaper or something like that. These accessories can be purchased at any time. We do stock them. And then text to speech can also be purchased later. We do offer hotkey guides for Mac, PC, and Chromebook. So if you currently have a MagniLink S and you're wanting to use keystrokes more and you didn't know there were hotkey guides available, please send us an email and we'll get that out to you. And I'll give you my contact information in a minute. I'm going to stop and ask Catherine if there's any questions. If anybody wants to ask Rebecca a question, and Catherine can verbalize that.
We do have a question. Does the MLS require any type of software update?
Great question. So the MLS, when you get it, it has a USB dongle that comes with it that has the latest software on it. So you can install the software. If you're trying to do video or PC, anything other than plug it just into a monitor, yes, it does require the software. We do update the software. Most of the time, the updates are just put up on our website. And when you install the software, you do have the ability to check for updates. It'll go out to our server and look for it. Again, we're not a software company, we're a hardware company. So most of the time we don't charge for software updates. And I want to say most of the time, because there are times that we do. But if you lose that USB, you can get the software anytime off of our website. And if there's time at the end, I'll show you how easy that is to find, because anybody can install our software at any time, because it doesn't do any good unless you have a camera. So schools, for instance, could put it on 50, 100, 200 computers that you're never locked down with it. And their IT people love that, because when they wipe the systems for security, they can burn our software right on their image. So we don't lock anybody out of our software, because again, it doesn't do you any good if you don't have the camera. Any other questions? Then I'll pause here for a second and I'll let you know that the exit code is July, J-U-L-Y, July, and Catherine will put that in the chat. The exit code is July. We do have more webinars coming up. Starting in September, we're doing our back to school series. So September 14th at 1 o'clock Eastern time, zip through your school day with the MagniLink Zip. We'll show off the 13, the 17 with an XY table, without an XY table, integrated XY table, just all the different options with the Zip. And we'll also show it with text to speech on a PC. It will be the focus. September 28th. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but I didn't want to miss this question. So Janelle says, to give me a point of reference, I've seen the distance viewing capabilities of the MagniLink tab. Does the camera on the MLS have the same specs / capabilities? Great
question. And yes, basically our MLS camera, our tab camera, and our Zip camera are almost identical. They're slightly different because of the fact the tab camera is on like something that's bendable and movable. So it's a little different form factor, but they're all full HD 1080p cameras. I would have to look at the aspect ratios to tell you, one of them might start at 1.1 and one might be slightly different. So I would have to look that up. If you email me, I will gladly look that up and get that information to you, but they're all basically the same. The one specific difference with the MLS camera is that it has memory built in it. So if you go across the room and you're at 3x full color, then you come down on the document, you're at 6x black on white, it will auto change. The tab camera will not do that at this time, but the Zip camera does do that, but the tab one does not at this time. So that is one kind of a significant difference. Any other questions, Catherine, before I go on?
No, that's it. Thank you.
You're welcome. September 28th would be our next one. And we actually will be showing off the MLS. We'll be showing it live, showing the docking station, showing you the software. So it'll be just focused on the MLS. You can register for any and all of our webinars at www.lviamerica.com/webinar to ensure your spot. Register today. Thanks for attending. We'll come back with one last question for Rebecca in a second, but we are here to assist you. If you want hotkey guides or you have questions on anything, feel free to reach out to me anytime. I am Kimberly Klein, 702-468-6611. That is my cell number. You can text me as well, kimberly.klein@lviamerica.com. Rebecca Dorton, her picture is up here as well. And we gave out her email in case you specifically, maybe you're struggling at a job site or you just said, you know, gosh, I really related to what you said here. Please email her. It's REB, that's REB as in boy, J as in Jack in the Box, camp, CAMP. So rbjcamp at UT dot, you know what? I think I have this wrong, Rebecca. It's not TUM, isn't it? UTM? I think I have your email wrong.
You're muted. There you go.
So would you say your email, Rebecca? Because I think I have it wrong.
Yes, it's REBJCAMP at UT.UTM for UT Martin, go Skyhawks, .edu.
Thank you. So you guys, we'll fix that before we put this PowerPoint out. I have TUM instead of UTM. So thank you very much. And then you can also reach Catherine Gettle at Catherine Gettle. It's Catherine.Gettle. It's CATHERINE.Gettle, GETTEL at lviamerica.com. And this is Catherine's cell number as well. You can text or call her at 802-236-4404. If there aren't any questions, I know we're right at the top of the hour, but I wanted Rebecca to share two things quickly. So if there's any other questions, let's address those.
None that I see.
Rebecca, would you just share, I hate to be quick with this, but I know we're at the end. Would you share a little bit about your son and how you've self-advocated, or I shouldn't say self, but helped him self-advocate? And then, you know, share what you and I talked about, that, you know, sky's the limit. You could do many things. You know, do you want to be an attorney? You know, it's just a short bit about some of your dreams.
So yeah, my oldest son, he's 26 now. He was diagnosed with Asperger's when he was 9 years old. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of information about Asperger's available. It was still a fairly new diagnosis. So we had to scramble to learn. He was struggling with school. And if you know anything about Asperger's, one of the biggest barriers is the social cues and picking up on those. So we had to work really hard to get accommodations for him. It being a fairly new diagnosis to our area, especially, we had to work with the schools, and there were a ton of IEP meetings and M-team meetings. But we also were able to reach out to a counselor for him. And so between his counselor and between me taking some advocacy classes, taking some classes to learn about special education, I actually became his biggest advocate. Taking the special education classes was one of the best things I ever did, because I learned his rights. And I think that's key with any disability, or as I like to say, differently abled person, is to learn what your rights are, learn more about yourself and what you need, learn your rights, learn about how to ask for things. You don't have to go in and, you know, be like a bull in a china shop, but you can go in and nicely ask for things. And that's what I had to do with him. And that's what I have to do with myself sometimes, is, you know, so that I can work, and for him so that he could finish school. He's actually doing really well now. He's working in construction, building houses. I guess he gets that from my dad, that passion and that interest. So he's really doing well. He's making friends. He's learned how to read social cues a little better. So he does really, really well. I'm very proud of him. So, and as far as me with my goals, I still have not put the idea of law school out of mind yet, but I also have that passion and interest in cooking. And so I'm actually considering maybe next year starting to make soup mixes, homemade soup mixes, and start a little home business. Start venturing out to some craft shows and craft fairs and things like that. But I don't know, somewhere in there, there's going to be a happy medium. Maybe I can do craft shows and soup mixes, or maybe I will look at going back to law school. But I will share this too. When I was in school, one of my instructors in my legal studies classes told me that because I was struggling, and she told me that there was a judge in West Tennessee that had a vision impairment, and because of him and his vision impairment, he was able to change some of the state statutes and codes on legal documents and how they were produced so that they would be easier to read and easier to convert for people with vision impairments. So he played a part, and that encouraged me. I mean, there's certain things that I can do, certain things that you can do, certain things that each of us can do better than somebody else. So we just have to focus on our strengths.
Absolutely. I mean, we all have a purpose. We all have a God-given purpose. And I tell you, sometimes it takes a while to find what that is, but don't stop, and always keep self-advocating, and know that, you know, even if you think it's not related, Catherine and I are here to help you. So absolutely. Contact us, reach out to us. We do care. And,
absolutely. And there's going to be tough days. There's going to be days you just sit down and cry, have a cry, sit down, you know, get mad about it, and get up the next day and keep going. Just don't stop. Don't stop.
Absolutely. Rebecca, thank you. It's just been a joy to talk with you over the last few weeks. And, you know, we ended up putting this off because we canceled some of our stuff for the summer, and you've just been so gracious. And thank you so much for your sharing your story, your life, your encouragement. And Cheryl, a big thank you to introducing us to Rebecca. And if those of you that are out there that, you know, might know of another great person for our Living with Low Vision series, please let Catherine and I know. Usually it's a process. We talk to them, and it might be 6 months later that they come on just because of scheduling. But we always want to make sure that we share these amazing stories for these people that are out there doing incredible things. So thank you again, Rebecca.
Thank you for having me. And y'all have been wonderful also. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rebecca.
All right, then we're going to sign off for today. If you have additional questions, Catherine and I are here at any time. Feel free to reach out to us. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.